Welcome to our presentation. My name is Christoph. I'm from ScaleUp, and with me I have Freerk.
I'm also from ScaleUp.
And today we will talk a bit about our journey on building a cloud infrastructure platform based on both open source software solutions and on open hardware solutions in Germany. So just a very brief overview of who we are and what we do at ScaleUp. So we are a managed hosting and cloud provider based in Germany with data centers in Berlin, Hamburg, and Düsseldorf currently. And our focus has been the open source ecosystem from day one. And we've been using open source for most, if not all, of our infrastructure for many years. I personally first stumbled across OCP a good three and a half years ago, it should be by now, when a good friend asked me the question whether I wanted to buy some Facebook servers from him. And I was like, I don't know what you mean, but I researched a bit and found out about the Open Compute project and about OCP servers, and it all looked very interesting. So we spent some more time on this. So today we are a member of the Open Compute project. We're also a solution provider in the Open Compute project, and basically we both use OCP for our infrastructure, and at the same time we today also sell Open Compute hardware and software solutions to other enterprises. So that's a brief overview of who we are. So to bring it all a bit into context, why open matters. So as I said, most of our software stack has always been completely open source. And nowadays our server stack is also mostly based on open hardware. So we are using OCP servers. We are using bare metal switches with Sonic as the network operating system on them. But from my perspective, personally, the openness goes far beyond hard and software. It also goes about the concept of being a community, working with others, sharing knowledge, ideas, and that's basically why we're standing here today, right? And at the same time, there's also a new approach about open operations, where basically operators of infrastructure come together and help each others out to, share best practices, help fixing problems, and so forth. Now, since the topic also mentioned the term sovereignty, I wanted to briefly make sure that we are talking about the same things when we talk about sovereignty and resilience. So, you can read it, but to put it into a few words. So, in an economic context, resilience describes the fact that things are resistant in an ecosystem, and sovereignty describes the part where basically you have free choice, and you can or I can decide on what to do, and I'm not influenced by others on what I'm allowed to use or not to use. And so especially in a European context, we believe that sovereignty and resilience are quite important, especially after the last couple of years with, energy crisis, COVID, and all those different things happening, chip shortage, etc. I think those aspects become more and more important. So, why did we build, or why should anyone build a sovereign and regional cloud? This is basically something that a few things I took out of a white paper that was published sometime last year by the Sustainable Digital Infrastructure Alliance. So basically, the idea is to have like something, a good alternative to the established, mostly US-based hyperscalers out there. And from a European and geopolitical perspective, it just makes sense to have a good alternative and not rely only on US tech to dominate the market. Existing cloud providers are of vertical nature normally, and they always try to lock you in to a single vendor. So we believe in the fact that if we use common standards, open APIs, open concepts, people should not be locked in. And having a regional approach in regards to cloud services is also beneficial. So a customer can essentially choose to use the provider of his choice and locate the data where he thinks it's best located, or to make his decision based on the fact that, well, these are the best people I can talk to, so I trust them with my business and I use their infrastructure. So greater competition among providers should also promote efficiency. That's one of the outcomes of this white paper. And we also believe that a regional provider can more easily cater to specific needs. So a very nice example is the pretty tight data privacy regulations, especially in Germany. So it's much easier for us to talk to a potential customer about what he needs to do or what he shouldn't do than if he talks to a provider from another country. Also, language barriers can be a problem. I mean, nowadays it shouldn't be the biggest one, but there's a few things here there. Yeah, so goal, building a regional cloud which is sustainable. So maybe Freerk can say a few things about how we put our first OCP deployment into production.
Yeah, sure. So from a technical point of view, we first, as Christoph said, got in touch with OCP about 4 to 5 years ago. And basically, we got a big batch of Facebook servers, and we were like, what should we do with it? We were building the Open Stack clouds for many, many years before, so it was not our first Open Stack cloud. But we kind of needed to figure out a way of how to get it on those OCP servers. So the first OCP-based cloud was called OCC1, OCC being our marketing term for Open Compute Cloud, meaning an Open Stack cloud based on OCP servers. We built it in Hamburg in one of our data centers with initially just 2 Rittal open racks, which were about half filled. We put some 19-inch racks right next to them, just so we can mix and match OCP servers and 19-inch servers. We later found out that we actually don't need the 19-inch servers at all, so they have been sitting empty almost. But yeah, it's still 2 racks, which are almost full by now. For the switches, we also use OCP switches. We actually use Facebook's Wedge 100 switches, which we also got refurbished. For the network operating system on them, unfortunately back then, we couldn't get Sonic for them, which is kind of our preferred NOS by now. So we had the choice of either Cumulus Linux or Arista EOS, both being by one vendor only, which we didn't really like. But we opted for Arista EOS because Cumulus back then just got bought by NVIDIA, so we were not showing which direction they will go, especially with Broadcom-based chips, like the one in the Wedge 100. So we went with Arista on those switches. For the servers, as Christoph also said, we use Facebook Leopard servers back then. Those servers are pretty much made from Facebook for Facebook. So I will go through a bit of problems with them in the next slide. Also, we used pretty much custom Ansible playbooks to deploy the OpenStack to it, which we also changed now. So what did we learn about all of this? We did learn a couple of things. First of all, the cloud is working fine. We didn't have any major issues. But we had some small issues which are somewhat OCP related, and these can be categorized into two sections. One of them is the network scalability. So the networking situation on those wedge switches with Arista, which is not a bad NOS, but we had it running as a very basic layer 2 setup using VLANs and also layer 2 to the core switches, which obviously doesn't scale very well. So we wanted to change that in future deployments. We also want to move towards something a bit more open, as I said, Sonic right now, which can then also talk with open standards like BGP, layer 3, etc. The other issue that we kind of saw was in regards to the Leopard servers, which were obviously designed by Facebook for Facebook. OCP servers in general don't have any bells and whistles that you don't need. So, for example, there's no port for a monitor, or at least no full big port. The Facebook servers were very, very bare bone and minimalistic. So there's no proper BMC. Obviously, they created their own solution for it. But for our case, it was kind of lacking in features. So there was no redfish support, which we use for our automations usually. No GUI, no web UI, which you typically don't really need, but sometimes it's easier for troubleshooting. There's also no onboard Ethernet, for example. So typically, we want to have a onboard Ethernet, which you can use to manage the BMC and also maybe the server. In this case, with the Leopard servers, Facebook decided that they don't need it, which is fair, but it means that we can also not use it. We need to go over the very big interfaces through the core leaf switches, even for stuff like managing the servers, which works, but not ideal. Also, what we found out is that the Leopard servers don't have any big storage capabilities because, again, Facebook, for their use cases, doesn't really need storage probably, so they probably left it out, which is a problem because we run a Ceph cluster for block storage and we do need a lot of NVMe in there, so we kind of worked around with it by using PCIe to 4.m.2 slots, which is still a bit limiting because we can only install 4 M.2 SSDs, which are the very fragile circuit board ones. But still better than nothing. So, what did we change?
Yeah. So, what's the future
gonna
be like? Yeah, we decided on a few things. You can go through them.
So right now we are building our next Open Stack cloud, which is of course OCP based. So it was obviously a success to use OCP, and we want to continue doing that. The next one will be called OCC2, obviously. We built this in Berlin. This is the next cloud location for us. We went with 6 Rital open racks this time, so we can house roughly about 300 servers. But really, we have a lot of more space in that data center, so we are already preparing for more. For the networking, we went with Sonic this time, so we switched over to edge core switches in this new deployment. They're not, the switches themselves are open networking switches, not OCP switches, but it's more important to us to run an open network operating system on it. And from the architecture, we plan to use BGP all the way from the spine to the leaf switches and all the way to the servers. So we have no layer 2 connectivity that is seen by the switches. We want to virtualize the tenant networking using OVN, which is a project very close to Open Stack, very active, very popular. For the servers, we also kind of changed what we use. We now have a partnership with Mytech, where we are actually part of a supply chain, so we can actually distribute Mytech servers, but also get them directly from Mytech. And they are a bit more general purpose. There are still no unnecessary features on top of them. But for example, they solve all the issues we had with the Quanta Leopard servers. So for example, there's an onboard Ethernet. There are actually 12 times 2.5-inch drive bays in there. And there is, for example, Redfish support, which is very helpful for us. So the deployment that we run on this, the software stack, is still OpenStack, but we choose to do things in a bit of a different way. So we use something called OSystem, which is a deployment and OpenStack deployment service and distribution, which is very close to something called the sovereign cloud stack, which is basically an idea of sharing your OpenStack operations, especially if you're a small provider with a lot of other small providers to kind of work in a large team. And Christoph will talk a bit about that now.
Yeah, to bring that into context and talk a bit about that. So we are still using OpenStack, but we decided to standardize on what it's called the sovereign cloud stack. It's basically a government-funded project in Germany. It's part of the larger Gaia X project in Europe, and it's basically the idea to come up with a common software infrastructure platform for providers to use, or even for enterprises to use, with the idea to use OpenStack as the basis for the virtualization and the compute resources, but add a few things to it, mainly defining standards. So, I mean, one simple problem with OpenStack is, I mean, you can get OpenStack from OVH, you can get OpenStack from us, you can get OpenStack from other providers in Germany, and each provider names the flavors of their VMs, the sizes of the VMs differently, right? So, as a customer, it's not easy to migrate from one to the other when there's completely different name schemes for those flavors, for those sizes of the virtual machines. The same goes for other aspects of the platform. And one of the main goals within the sovereign cloud stack is to, well, standardize on it and make it a standard, have a standard naming scheme and other things, so it's easier to go from provider A to provider B. Yeah, so that's one of the things why we chose to go down this path, and to show you the context of the sovereign cloud stack. So we are basically only focusing on the lower part, which is called SCS1 here. And basically the idea is to have a common set of software tools which people can use in a data center or a service provider context, or in an on-premise data center context. So it's the same software stack, the same management stack, everything the same, so that you can basically mix and match. Yeah, well, I put a frame around it, I forgot, so, well. To kind of bring it a bit together, I have 5 minutes. Well, this one says 7 minutes and 52 seconds, I have to say, so. So our cloud is based on OCP hardware. We're using 100% green energy. We decided on using SES as a software stack. And so the goal being to have no lock-in. We kind of want to, I don't know, we want to win people by having the best service and not by locking people in with some non-open APIs or things like that. At the same time, we want to focus on the infrastructure, so we do not run any applications on top. So we actually partner with local service providers, and they can utilize the platform to deliver services. And that's also the approach on this regional and sustainable cloud, to work with others. And at the same time, as part of the Sovereign Cloud Stack project, we're actually collaborating with our competitors. So we're actually the week after, there's actually a large competitor in Germany coming by. They come to our OCP Experience Center in Berlin because they are interested in open hardware. I mean, sure, we're competing with them, but why not share some of the knowledge with them, right? We think it's the right approach to do that. Yeah, to sum up, what makes the cloud sustainable. So with OCP servers, we save on average 15 to 20% on electrical power for running the servers. So in my view, that's a big benefit, really, especially with high energy prices in Germany. We use 100% green energy, thus reducing the carbon footprint. We still do use some refurbished servers. Even though we got some new servers from MyTech out of Taiwan, we use some refurbished components in those servers. So we're still trying to minimize our Scope 3 emissions by going down the refurbished server part. And the next step is also to reuse the waste heat of the servers, again, to reduce the carbon footprint. So I won't go into detail on the energy savings. I did talk about that before. I'm happy to share all those numbers, or you can look them up. Basically, back in the day, we did a comparison between traditional 19-inch and OCP servers, and this is what came out of it. And in production, we can state that this is still the fact. So, what's our call to action? What's the conclusion? What to do next? I guess. So, we believe that OCP can be a big driver in reducing overall CO2 emissions. So, if I had a wish free, I would wish that more people and enterprises would start using OCP. I mean, it's not like you're replacing a server with a completely different server. It's the same CPU. It's the same system. It's just a different approach on doing things, and just by doing that, you can reduce your overall CO2 emissions by a big chunk. So that's probably my biggest wish, to make sure that OCP gets adopted more widely, and that OCP solutions get adopted by more service providers and enterprises. We're trying to do our part, but we can't do everything ourselves, so we rely on the overall community here and to get the word out about using OCP. At the same time, talking about the sovereign cloud stack and the Open Stack approach, we think this is also the best way for regional hosting companies, service providers to go to. So we would encourage everyone to start using or at least look at the sovereign cloud stack. And talking to customers, addressing customers directly, we believe customers should choose regional cloud providers primarily, and not only rely on cost, but also focus on sustainability aspects. So last thing, there's a marketplace link. You can look us up on the marketplace or find us at booth A14. And if anyone is interested in having some ScaleUp socks, please come by our booth A14. You can pick them up. We didn't bring them here. So thank you. Thanks.